The final game of the year for the Springboks, Wales in Cardiff. A game outside the test window, a game where Wales are missing as many as 15 players, depending how you count it. Springboks are missing almost as many, but we wouldn't say that given the selection that they've had for this week. With me, as always, Nick Mallett, Gavin Rich. Guys, excited about this test? Nick, let's start with you.
Excited. I think it's a test match that's basically there for financial reasons from both
Yeah,
Wales's point of view and South Africa's point of view. It's to earn a bit of money in pounds. Let's just hope they get a few people in the gates because after New Zealand, you're playing a side that's better than New Zealand, and you just hope that the Welsh supporters will keep pitching up and supporting their team so that they can actually make a profit out of this game. But just on that note, and I know Gavin has written about it, but the franchise, I feel a bit sorry for the franchises who've had to negotiate some financial compensation from Saru on the fact that they're releasing their players out of the test window. Particularly a team like the Stormers, when you consider that they're playing the other number one team, Munster, this weekend, and it's a pretty critical game. You win this one away, it would be an extraordinary performance. And there are a couple of guys who could make a difference. I mean, Sasha makes a difference in any team he plays. Having Reinach there, having Damien Willemse, but it is what it is, and I think that we're going to finish on a high. I just don't believe that Wales have the strength in depth that we do. So if they lose that, it looks like a sort of a reasonably strong URC team that's going out for them, as opposed to a test match side.
Gav, the Boks obviously selected their side today. Kobus Reinach's getting his 50th off the bench there. We all thought it was going to be a very inexperienced side, given some of the noises out of the camp this week. But there's a number of those Japanese players, a number of experienced players in there. It's quite a strong side the Boks selected at the end of the day.
Yeah, you see, I mean, as Nick said, I wrote about it, and I'm happy with games that are played outside of the international window when it's like the Barbarians at the start of the international season when we need our Japan. I think we spoke about this in a previous podcast. When you need your Japanese players to get assimilated back into the system, I don't like games that are in this window. And look, I know we started doing this years ago. I mean, we've played Wales a hell of a lot of times in the last 20 years. And probably at least half of those games have, if not more, have been outside the international window. But remember, something changed in 2021. We joined the Northern Hemisphere. It used to be the end. Nick will remember from his time, you went on the end of your tour, and it quite literally was also the end of season tour. Now we've got the situation where our modern players playing for the Boks are sort of just at the start of their season. I mean, the Eben Etzebeths and company are going to have to report to their franchises next week. Well, I think in their case, probably in 2 weeks' time, they'll play a home game against Saracens. So it's a difficult one. I do have a problem with these end of season games. I do understand that it makes money. At the same time, when we saw them play Japan a couple of weeks ago in an out of season game, in an out of window game, should I say, in Wembley, they didn't actually draw much of a crowd. But then it was, I suppose, it was South Africa against Japan, and it was at a neutral venue, even though we know there's so many expats in London. But just talking about what you say about the team there, Brennan, if we had been going with a really young side, I would have seen more purpose to it. But when you see sort of like a lot of the experienced guys coming and adding like another cap to, okay, I'm thinking of Damien Delendi. I think he's already 92 or 96. I can't remember, but he's going to add another cap. I don't really know what they're going to gain out of playing against what is going to be a very weak Wales team. And I'll actually call him Nick here, Nakadrotsky. And Nick's going to know exactly what I'm saying now. In 1998, knocked a ball on at Loftus. Yeah. And if he hadn't knocked on that ball towards the end of that game at Loftus, the Boks were going to win by 100 points. And I'm not saying that the Boks are going to win by 100 points this weekend, but if it's a similarly one-sided game as that one, I wouldn't be completely surprised. I mean, I expect Wales to come out hard at the start and to play with a lot of pride. But it's, to me, it's just such a massively sort of lopsided game in terms of, just if you look at the caps. If you look at the caps, I think I mentioned it somewhere in an article yesterday where there are 3 Springbok players. If you add their caps together, it's more than the entire sort of Welsh squad. So what I'm saying is I don't know what you get out of the game when if it is as one-sided as it could be.
Mm.
Yeah, and Nick, I don't know if you want to come in just on the Wales team. They're missing. They lost 10 guys from last week, plus the hat trick try scorer last week as well. Yeah, they were quite happy with losing 52-26 to all the All Blacks. They were actually talking themselves up about how great it was because they kept with the All Blacks in the first half. A very
Yeah.
mediocre All Black side.
Yeah, I think everything needs to be put in perspective. When you come off 17 losses in a row, whatever it was, and you're celebrating a win against Japan at home, those are dire circumstances for a team and for a coach and for a federation. So, for them to feel that they didn't get a big hammering by the All Blacks and one of their players got a hat trick, which is unusual, it was for them, I suppose, what they considered to be no worse than many other Welsh teams had done against, decent New Zealand sides in the past. And I was interested to read about Stefan de Blanche, who knows Steve Tandy well, and he mentions that Steve Tandy as a player was very similar to Rassie. He spent a lot of time analysing opposition, a lot of time working out what the best moves that his team could do against the opposing team, and he was a coach, really a born coach, and he feels that Steve Tandy is going to make a big difference to Wales. You've always got to then add: has he got the cattle? Has he got the talent to allow Wales to become competitive again? It's all very well being a good coach, but you need, and have really good interpersonal relationships with the players that they really want to play for you. But it's quite another if your guys are inexperienced and just aren't used to winning. And if you look at the Wales setup, I mean, they're going through a traumatic period where they're having to cut it from four franchises down to maybe three. So two are going to have to amalgamate, which is against everything that the Wales club rugby ever wanted. They desperately need to consolidate their best players and become a little bit like Ireland did or like Italy have done. Fewer players, two franchises, maybe a development franchise, so that they can, like Scotland, with only two teams, they can get their best players playing and hopefully become more competitive again. But my view of this is that there's a whole swathe of players that you could pick. It's not just no one sort of sticks out as an international player. They're all good club players or play. And when we say they're good club players, very few of those Welsh sides made it into the top 8. I think there was only one last year. In a couple of seasons, none of the 4 got into the top 8 of the URC. So we're talking about a country that really hasn't got the talent at the moment. And it's going to be a tough game. It really is going to be a tough game for them.
Brent, just if I could just say quickly, just on Wales, because I'm sure we're going to move on from Wales. It's interesting though, because it wasn't that long ago when Wales were actually doing okay. They beat us a number of times in a row, and I just had a bit of downtime earlier today before I was waiting for the Springbok team to be announced, and I ended up watching SuperSport, and I watched the end of the game between the Boks and Wales and Cardiff in 2017. Which turned out to be Alistair Coetzee's last game as coach. And I remember it was 24-22 to Wales, and they were sneaking to a win. And I looked at some of the guys in the Springbok team, and Bongi was there, Loot de Jager was there, Peter Steph de Toy was there, Seo was definitely there. I think De Alendi was there. And I don't know who had been on the field before then, because obviously the substitutions had been made. And I was thinking, well, jeepers, that's actually quite a strong team. Like, why are they losing? And then I looked at the Welsh team, and they had Alan Wynne-Jones, and they had a lot of big name players from Lions tours from the past. Yeah. In fact, I still think they had Sam Warburton captaining them. Yeah. So they were still very strong then. And just going back into next time now, I'll just mention that 1998 game where the Springboks were scored 96 points. I think it was 96-13, if I remember correctly. And the next time you guys played them, Nick, was at Wembley at the end of the year, where you were saved by the streaker.
we were saved. Well, we were saved, but also we got a penalty try from a scrum. Actually, ironically, you scored a try. Eventually, I think we got away with 9-point win or something like that. But it was quite close going into it was very close. That was when We played them, I think, at Wembley, and it was they had what is the New Zealand coach who won the World Cup? They had him,
Graham Henry. Graham Henry
doing them, and he'd put some structures in place, and they were a far better team. But also, at that time, that was their number one team. That was their very best team.
Yeah.
The side that came out and we played in Pretoria was a second and third best team. I mean, there were guys we had never seen in our lives before playing for Wales.
Yeah.
And we were a decent side when we just got on top of them in the first 20 minutes, and then it was at altitude. We played very quickly, and we scored try after try after try. I mean, they were just humiliated in that game. But it didn't reflect. It didn't reflect on the strength of Welsh rugby. They just didn't send their test players out. They just sent as I said, a B and a C team.
Yeah, because what you summed it up earlier when you said they don't have the cattle. I mean, they did have the cattle then, they just weren't using them. And then, in fact, in the next game was, and I mean, my worst memory of Cardiff, and probably yours too, was 1999. And they still had, I think they still had Scott
Quinnell. Scott Gibbs, Scott Quinnell. No, that Alan, I think he was starting out. It was they had a really good side. Roberts at centre, who was played British, a number of British Lions players. So they were a good European side in that time. And remember that when Warren Gatland took them over, he won a couple of Grand Slams with that team. So it has been a precipitous fall in the last few years.
Well, 2019. In 2019, I wouldn't say we were lucky, because I do think we were the better team in that game, but it was also one of the worst, I think, playoff games in World Cup history. I was in Yokohama.
83 kicks, 43 by Wales, 40 by South Africa. Doesn't leave you much playing time left.
Exactly, but the fact is they made the World Cup World Cup semi-finals, and with a bit of luck, they could have actually made the final that year. Yeah. And that's not relatively recent. That was 6 years ago. So Wales, what I'm saying is Welsh, and in fact, I think that since then they've probably won the Six Nations again as well. I think that it wasn't that long ago that they won a Six Nations. Wasn't it the year that they came out here in 2021, Wales, with, I think, the Six Nations champions?
So they could easily have been. I know that Warren had a very good time, then retired, and then came back to save Wales. But unfortunately, that's an example of a coach who's been successful. Everyone knows that he knows what he's doing. He's been a British Lions coach, and he gets the team which is just, just fallen apart, and you can't change it. I mean, he was part of that 17 losses in a row. Yeah. Large parts of those were when he was coaching.
Gav, you mentioned that. I mean, when they came out here, I think it was 2022, was when I remember, didn't Damien Willems have to kick at Loftus right at the end to win the game, and then they lost in Bloemfontein with a totally different team the next week. Yeah. So, and that was Wayne Pivac, and I mean, since he left, and they hounded him out the job, then they sort of fell apart from there. So it's quite interesting how backwards they've gone so quickly. If you think that was
again, you talk about the cattle. They had Dan Bigger at fly half. I remember still then, and there were players there, like well-known players that were playing for them. And now you see the Welsh team, and I was actually quite surprised, to be honest, looking at the team, because there's 267 caps accumulated in the starting 15, but there's no debutants. I mean, there's nobody who hasn't played for Wales before, and most of the guys have played 10 or so tests. So although we're sort of couching it as a very inexperienced and callow Welsh team, it's not a bunch of guys that have suddenly been drawn together from the pub. I mean, if you've been to Cardiff, you know the walkabout club. They said, like, let's go and play the Springboks. I mean, there are guys there that have played quite a few times for Wales. And obviously, Wainwright is back.
Yes.
And he's got 69 caps. Dewey Lake's there still. There are guys there that do have like a bit of international mileage in them. So we shouldn't get too sort of, expected. I mean, obviously the Springboks are going to win, but it's they do have. They do have a little bit of a little being the operative word, a little bit of experience in that.
Sorry, Brendan. From a sort of rugby technical point of view, it's been really interesting that the teams that have tried to keep ball in hand and play running rugby have really struggled. The sides that Scotland, they score tries, but they concede so many. We go back to our game at Ellis Park when we decided to run the Australians off their feet. And we were run off our own feet by the fact that was exactly the sort of game that they're good at, of transitions, of mistakes, going for interception passes. So the way in which this Wales team plays looks to be a ball in hand type of game. They try and play They try and hold on to possession and win penalties that way. But I think they've upped their defense. I think their defense is a little bit better. In the last 3 games I've seen, they've shown a lot more heart and grit. Even against, even though it's only Japan, you've got to beat them. You've got to get in there and get stuck in. And the fact that they were reasonably happy after the game against New Zealand, I think that was half of that was how they held them up for long periods of time. So there's going to be enthusiasm and courage and bravery there. But I think if the Boks decide to go in with our usual rugby template, which is dominate the set pieces and put kicks up on their players and don't try and run them off their feet, we must actually force them into mistakes until we get to that 10, 15 point lead. And once we're there, then the opposition start playing from deep and they start getting worse and worse. And you can score off their mistakes and you can score off your own good play. So I think that's all we need to concentrate on Saturday, is not to just look at this Welsh team and say, listen, we're going to hammer these guys, because rugby doesn't work like that. You have to build an innings, as people say. And I hope we do that against this team on Saturday.
What I'd be worried about, Nick, if I was the Welsh, would be, because we haven't actually spoken about the sort of nitty-gritty of that Springbok team. Because the one thing that Rassie has done, he's brought out a 7-1 split.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got and I fully expect Kwagga to probably play at centre. I don't know why. I've just got a funny feeling that he's going to end up doing that. But still, 7-1 sort of would send a message to me if I was the opposition that we're in for one hell of a bloody physical game here.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And there are little things as well in that, just to chat about it. Little things like Porthen looks like he's actually backing up Lucid this time around.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's ever played Lucid before, but that's interesting. And those sort of things. I don't know if you know if Zach's played there before, Nick.
No, I don't know. He's really worked hard at being a good tight end, so I'm not sure at all. And maybe Asananti would be better at Lucid there, but we'll see. We'll see how that develops. I think that what is extraordinary is the size of our backline. I don't think there's any guy under 1 point. I mean, Damian Phillips and Reinach maybe under 1.9. I mean, you've got Ethan Hooker, you've got Kane and Moody, all over 6'2", 6'3". Dallander, a huge, Esterhuizen, huge, and Sasha's far bigger than people understand. When he's standing next to Esterhuizen, he looks like a backline player. But if he stands, in a crowd, he's a big guy. He's 95 kilograms. So we've got a really physical backline, all of whom can play in different positions. You've got both wings can play in the center. You've got the fullback who can play at fly-off and vice versa. Our fly-off can play at fullback. Scrum-off who can play on the wing. We've got a center who can go in and play flank if we have to. We've got a flank on the bench, as you say, who can play wing or center. I mean, it's an extraordinary group of players that he's developed that have confidence in playing in more than one position at the international level. I mean, that's the key to it. No one gets surprised when we see an extraordinary thing like Esterhuizen scoring a maul try. Everyone says, "Oh no, he must have worked hard at that during the week." He knows all the line-out signals. So another good thing about this is Nortje. I think Nortje's he's had a really good tour, and I think this is probably congratulations to him. That Klein is getting in the spot of Etzebeth. Obviously, they're going to get Etzebeth on the field in the second half, but I think Nortje's he's that number 4 spot. He's done a really good job there, and our lineout is operating well with him there.
I was going to add to that, guys, that obviously Rassie said at his press conference, one of the reasons why they chose that reserve bench like that was because there's only 25 players on tour. And then he still flippantly said 24 is Natutuku and Nchunu and 25 is Dwayne Vermeulen. So which I thought was retired. So it could be that's just and then knowing Rassie, there's probably a bit more to it than that. But he thought let's take that chance anyway. And just maybe both of you guys, if you had to choose 2 things you want the Boks to get out of this game, for me, I'd like to. It's good to see the Bulls front row starting. They come off the bench quite often, so they can impose themselves from the start there. I suppose, what else would you guys like to see the Boks get out this game in terms of the small battles, I suppose, in that way? Nick, you can go.
I think managing the game properly. I think that's it's always important for the 9 and 10 to manage it, and the more they can learn, the more they get into the situations where they understand whether there's momentum, we can play if there's momentum, and we're outnumbering them in terms of our guys on our feet as opposed to them in defence. And those decisions taken by 9 and 10 are so critical. So every single game that Sasha plays at 10, he's going to learn. He's going to learn when it's on, when it's not on, whether he should have kicked, whether he should have passed, whether he should have put an up and under or a cross kick. Those decisions are so critical to winning key games. And sometimes you get carried away, as we keep on going back to that Ellis Park game. As soon as you get carried away in a game of rugby, you can let the opposition back into the game. A simple mistake by Colby made it a really tight game against Argentina in the final of our competition there, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want them to be within 7 points of us, or with 20 minutes to go. We want to play the correct rugby so that we can dominate them as we should, and we will still score tries through our backline. It'd be interesting to see. We've got such a big, strong centre pairing. Interesting to see how Damien goes at outside centre, Damien Dallander, defensively and on attack, because they've got two young but pretty solid centres as well. Two Joes, I'm not sure what their names are, Roberts and someone else.
Yeah, if you want to...
Yeah, Brendan, look, the first one, the obvious one, it's nothing to do with the game, but I'm just hoping that especially the guys who are going to be playing URC rugby from next, in fact, they'll be playing Champions Cup rugby next week, not URC. But those guys, because from now until July, our rugby business is about the URC. So obviously I'm hoping that there's no injuries and there's nobody. And we've had some bad luck in some of these end of year tour games. I think it was in 2014 that John de Villiers, and I hope I'm not putting the mockers on someone, but John de Villiers, remember, suffered that injury that kept him out for most of 2015. And Heineke probably regrets now having brought him back for that World Cup in 2015. I think the Boks might have done better if they'd just gone on with Farid de Pree as their captain from the beginning. But what I'd actually like to see is a total performance in the sense that not one of those games where everything slacks off at some point and Wales go through and score 4 tries or something late in the game. Or they won't, because the Boks actually don't do that. It's more likely to be the other way around. But a game where the defence works and the attack works and sort of end the year in style, and that's what you need when you've got a game like this where you're expected to win, is end the year in style. And individually, I'd actually like to see Sasha sign off this international campaign with another one of those statement performances of his, that everybody's talking about Sasha again, because it just makes rugby more interesting when you've got that sort of global star coming through. England love talking about Henry Pollock. We must start talking about Sasha, because I think he's probably the sort of global star of the moment, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, just a couple of tidbits from last week's game. I suppose we all expected some sort of reaction from the Irish punditry. Matt Williams didn't disappoint us, but what I really enjoyed was Nigel Owen's comeback and telling him that if they depower the scrum, they're going to destroy the game, which was lovely that we didn't have to answer that one and somebody else starts answering that guy. And then the other thing is James Ryan getting 3 weeks suspension. Not sure how he got 3 weeks, and he can get a week off if he goes to tackle school. But Luet got 4 and doesn't get any mitigation. Yeah. I don't know if you guys
we don't want to go back to cards. Hopefully they rethink the fact that the referee can make these decisions on the field with these assistants and TMOs, and that it's a yellow card, he goes off and a bunker decides whether it's 20 minutes or whether it is really deliberate thuggery, which I think should only be very much a last call type of thing by the bloke in the bunker. So you want to keep the game moving. You don't want a whole lot of stoppages with these looking up and at some big screen and guys advising you when they can't see properly. So that was the mess. The big mess for me in this autumn series has been the cards issue and the inconsistencies between referees in sending guys off and giving yellows and giving reds. It was just so inconsistent. So we've got to get that right. And then I think the rise of England has been interesting. That they've now probably are looking that they think they're favourites for the Six Nations after the autumn series. to see whether France can bounce back, because they were disappointing. I thought New Zealand were disappointing. I thought Australia were disappointing. Scotland, blew hot and cold. And Argentina typically fought right until the bitter end. I mean, if they'd won that last line out, who's to say they wouldn't have won the game against England? So quite an interesting Quilter, whatever it's called, Quilter Cup or whatever, the Quilter Autumn Series, from looking at all our teams' perspective. But South Africa has really taken another step forward, in my view, and the others are treading water at the moment compared with us.
Yeah, but I mean that's very true. I mean, you can come in here, your winners and losers as well for the year.
Well, Brendan, I just found it interesting. We like a lot of us give it. I mean, somebody like Stephen Jones in the Sunday Times, and he gets. I think because he's sort of set a trend, people love to have a go. If you read the comment sections, they always have love to have a go at Stephen. And the way he put it this week, he said the arrogant support. He said something like there was a sort of takeout in the Times where they were talking about what we're doing now. They were doing a sort of like your big losers and what you learnt about this series. And Stephen Jones actually, and he still got flack. So I sort of almost felt sorry for him. But he said that, the arrogant supporters, when they was claiming that their second team is the second best team in the world, may well be right, which is actually a compliment to South Africa. But he still got flack. He still got flack. So I sort of felt like he can't win. But that is actually where we're sort of almost going. If you sort of take some of, obviously it's a 23-man game now. So if you sort of choose a second team and you've got Arceus Neyman in the second team, you're actually cheating the system in a way, because maybe the Boks wouldn't be as good if Arceus Neyman wasn't in the 23. But if you actually put those two teams together and you've got you've got the first string team, they've got the midfield of De Allende and Creel, and then your second string team's got Hooker and actually Esterhuizen, or AA Nada. Or in fact, on the breakdown, I watched the breakdown last week. Yeah, but also I watched the breakdown last week, and where they chose their World 15, their World Team of the Year, and who did they have at number 12? They had Damian Willemse. He played about 50 minutes there, but they were so impressed. They were so impressed with him. They were so impressed with him in that game against the All Blacks in Wellington that they chose him, and I wouldn't argue with that. If I was a selector and I was choosing my best team, I promise you I would look very seriously at Damian Willemse, because I just think he's such a spare. It might depend on who you have at fly half, but you could just have, like they had in that game, they had Sasha and they had Damian together, and maybe the Stormers are going to have that in weeks to come if they've got Gallant at fullback. I'm really looking forward to the URC in some ways, because especially if those guys can stay fit, there could be some really exciting rugby coming. Ethan Hooker at the Sharks. Moody at the Bulls, Kurtley Arendse will come back, obviously, and so it's just you look around and there's a lot of, and obviously I'm leaving out the overseas-based players, but I'm really looking forward to what happens in the URC season, to see who comes through, and to see some of the exciting, we've got at the Stormers, for instance, you've got Kobus Reinach, you've got Feinberg and Gomazulu, and then you've got Willemse at 12. I mean, that's a very exciting combination, which we last saw in Wellington because Afaleli Fassi, of course, got injured in Wellington, so Rassie had to move Damian to full back. And I'd love to know, and if I get a chance to talk to Rassie during the off season, and he does live not far away from me, and I often see him in the same pubs and walking the dogs in the morning, I will at some point ask him, what would have happened if Fassi hadn't got injured? Would you have continued with Willemse at number 12? And I'm not entirely sure he's going to sort of disagree with me and say no. I think we might well have seen him play more often there.
Yeah. Add to your one, Gav, the other exciting part, Ulrich Lowe coming back for the Bulls now. That was unexpected. We thought he was only going to come back February, so that's great to see. And obviously Cam Hanekom coming back very soon as well. So there's going to be a bunch of players. If everyone stays fit by the time we get to the Boks season next season, hopefully, there's even more players to choose from we can talk to. I think we're about done for today. We'll be back after the game. Guys, just maybe leave with a points differential. I won't say a score line, but points differential Boks by, and then we can close it off.
35.
Okay, I'll lead off. I'll lead off, and I'll say that it's going to be the last time we played them at the end of the year was 43-12 last year. So the points differential was 31. So it's going to be somewhere between there and the 83 points that Nick's team had on them at Loftus. I think it's going to be between those two.
Yeah, I think 30, 35 points difference between, if they get 12 points, we'll be right up there close to 50, I think.
I think if we score early and fast, it could be even closer to that Loftus score. I don't think it'll be that much in Cardiff, but 50 odd points easy, I think, there as well. We're being very bold here. Let's hope Wales can put up a bit of a fight, though, and then make it an interesting game. Thanks, guys. We'll chat after the game again, our last one for the year. And as always, good chatting to you guys. We'll chat again Sunday.
Lovely.
Cheers.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Cheers.